Dr. Fuller, we were just saying that the Rich Brown Dr. Fuller show is modern American bread and circuses. Give the people what they want, right?
Give them what they want. Look at the monkey. Look at the monkey. Don't pay attention to the burning building.
No, what are you talking about? What burning building? Only a racist xenophobe would point out that there's a damn burning building. How dare you, sir? I'm morally offended. Where's my pearls at?
Clutch them quickly. Yeah, it is amazing how powerful those phrases have become, right? Mm-hmm. Xenophobic, racist, Islamophobic, like we were talking about last week. Let's say.
Right? This is the Charlie Kirk mug, freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that used to be a thing.
Yeah, it still could be a thing.
Could still be a thing. Well, I worry that it's going to get so far down the wrong path that people are really going to start getting upset, and we're going to start picking up bricks and throwing them. And I'd rather use
worse than bricks. Yeah, it's going to get worse than bricks. While we're waiting for folks to come on, today's show is going to be kind of a rambling expose on stuff that I don't know shit about, meaning the Minnesota fraud. Other than I just started watching this and I'm aghast at the levels of fraud. Dr. Fuller and I were talking in the green room. I don't think you've watched the whole 42-minute Nick Shirley expose, have you?
No, I watched about 10 minutes of it because I found it at ODark 30. So
same. I'm probably 20 minutes in, and as you and I were talking, I really had kind of avoided it this weekend. Obviously, we're still kind of celebrating Christmas and visiting family and doing all the things that we do, but I just thought maybe he'll fit, 6, 7 daycares that kind of don't work. And guess what, man? It's thousands.
Yeah. Well, and the dollar numbers are insane.
Yeah, billions with a B.
Found one that I watched, and he said, this place got $7.5 million from the state last year. That's just one facility, and then he goes through a healthcare bunch too. Did you see the bill on the healthcare?
Oh yeah,
he went into a building, and it had, typical office building, but it was just non-specific health center, door after door after door, and of course, no one's answering the doors. The doors are locked. He got into one and was talking to a receptionist behind the, ostensibly a receptionist. Who can I talk to with this? I don't know. I don't know. I'm like, well, what do you do as a receptionist? And of course, he's being followed by half a dozen Somalis trying to intimidate him.
And then what happens? Did you see the rest of
they told him to leave that particular office, and then I, got distracted by dishes. And
about a dozen police finally show up and ask him to leave.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. So he's like, I don't understand. I'm just trying to get some health care. Yeah, but they want you to leave. And they're kind of stuck in the middle. I understand that. I'm not blaming local law enforcement,
Well, especially in that particular political environment.
Yeah.
I mean, that state has proven it will hang its law enforcement personnel and its citizenry out to dry. And they'll use the state's monopoly on force and prosecutorial force as well as physical force to enforce compliance. So
yeah,
can't blame anybody involved there.
So the 4 folks that are watching live, please hit that share button. Like I said, if you're interested in hearing 2 middle-aged men ramble about fraud in Minnesota, you came to the right place this morning. But it's your freaking money, man. It's not just Minnesotans getting fleeced. I mean, when Tim Walz came in, they had a surplus, and now they have a multi-billion-dollar deficit. And I like to assume that it has something to do with this level of unprecedented level of fraud that's been going on here. And evidently, the Minnesota can't do anything about it. So I think Patel and the boys need to roll in there, Dr. Fuller.
Well, I mean, you take that much money fraudulently, you leave a massive trail. And I've done a bunch of white-collar crime investigations over the years, and the old maxim of follow the money is as true today as it ever was. And you follow that money and you'll find out what exactly is going on. But of course, you have to follow the money. It sounds to me as though the state has known about this at some level for quite some time, was doing nothing about it. I still am baffled by the idea that people who have a vested interest in the political system there in Minnesota are allowing this sort of thing, are subsidizing this sort of thing, are protecting this sort of fraud, and in essence, giving a foreign invader a toehold, a beachhead. They have a beachhead. And what do you do once you have a beachhead in any invasion?
Mhm.
You push in, you push out, you push away from the beachhead, you expand the beachhead, you take more.
We need financing too. So what a better way to get financing?
Yeah, I
than
mean,
just
can you
funding
imagine how
the
well
taxpayer.
how well it would go if we invaded China and the Chinese funded our invasion? And
Genius.
and every time we were approached by Chinese authorities, we screamed racism and xenophobia, and higher level Chinese authorities would come in and go, "Oh, stop that! Leave those poor misunderstood white people alone. And let them continue to take our money and
Wouldn't happen.
expand their beachhead." Um,
Hey, Dr. Fuller, that's the irony of this conversation is killing me here. My buddy Sam Day is on. He's a detective in human trafficking, and he has worked with a lot of these Chinese that are coming in here and how they are doing some of this stuff. So glad to have you on this morning, Sam, one of my oldest and dearest friends. Mark Hamilton is on from Ontario, Canada. My good friend Michael Gentili is on. Yeah, this we're talking about the fraud going on, and I haven't seen the full Nick Shirley interview. Neither has Dr. Fuller. We haven't watched it all the way through yet, partly because I thought it was kind of a nothing burger, but I think this thing is gaining speed. And part of the reason, Dr. Fuller, if I could, as to why I think it was a nothing burger initially, even as of this morning, you go on Fox News, you'll see Tim Walz responds to allegations, right? You go on CNN, and they'll tell you about, why your uterus may be smelling funny this morning and all this other bullshit. But they mention nothing about this unprecedented level of fraud. You go to Al Jazeera, BBC, nothing. And I mean, not a damn thing on the entire website. And so it's like journalism is dead, man. We're going to need more Nick Shirleys out there with an iPhone and the courage to penetrate these neighborhoods. What do you think?
What else do we have? And we've talked about this all the time. When authority figures abdicate their responsibility, someone else is going to fill that void. It's just going to happen. Nature abhors a vacuum, and that's what's actually going to happen. My question, of course, whenever I see something like this is, why? If the media, this is clearly a newsworthy item at some level, whether Shirley is perpetrating a massive racist fraud, which feeds into their narrative, the chosen narrative of the left-wing media outlets, or he's telling the absolute truth, in which case this is a massive fraud that it bears reporting, but it's not being reported on by larger media. So my question then becomes, why? Is it because he got the scoop and he's beat them all out? Well, I mean, media has picked up on other scoops before and run with them and try to dive deeper in them. So that doesn't really fly with me. But why would there be a news blackout on something like this? Are they afraid of feeding into a racist narrative that they fear so desperately? Are they afraid that somehow that if the federal government comes in and lays the hammer down, that they'll have fed some sort of pro-President Trump propaganda machine? I just don't understand why you would not report this, because by not reporting it, you leave another vacuum. And then you get guys like you and I coming in with barely cogent opinions going, well, maybe it's because you're trying to help what they're doing. Right? That's as logical as any other answer, and you're not giving an answer. So it really is concerning. It's very concerning on a lot of levels.
I know. It's baffling to me. Tony is on out there in Georgia. Matt is on from Tulsa. Thank you guys for watching this morning. Please like, and of course hit that share button. I think that if you look at the culture of the Somali community, very clannish, and what are they known for? Well, they're known for their piracy. And I think this is just that culture supplanted itself here, and they found a way to make a lot of freaking money. And again, I think the Quran makes it completely justifiable to outwit and commit fraud and lie to the infidel. So it's sanctioned within their text, and I think they as you and I were talking before we came on, they have a beautiful ready-made shield for all the liberal white guilt here in our country to cry racism and xenophobia because they're black and they're Muslim. Woohoo! And all you have to do is, when an auditor comes in there and starts asking questions, is act aghast and Next thing you know, their cousins and brothers start showing up and yelling at you, and you're like, you know what? I'm packing my shit and getting out of here. I mean, we have to have the freaking courage to stand and say, this is wrong. This is, you're stealing my money. You're stealing Dr. Fuller's money. You're stealing Tony's money, Matt's money, Jeff's money, Sam money. Everybody on here, you're losing money. Your children's future's going out the window. And oh, by the way, Dr. Fuller, I want to ask you a simple question here. You're a retired FBI agent. This money, this billions of dollars, I don't see it going back into the Somali community. I don't see gold encrusted mosques here. Where the hell is this money going?
It's a valid question, Rich. And again, follow the money, right? Where is the money going? Because as you say, it's not going into the facilities. It's not going into the Somali community. I mean, look, I don't know how you think it would go in Crossville, Tennessee, if all of a sudden 500 businesses were pulling down $10 million of state money per year in your community. But I think, you might not say anything, but there might be clues, right? We might notice a certain uptick in community standards of living. But you don't see that in Minnesota. So where's the money going? Are they burying it in jars in the backyard? I tend to think not. And I also got to tell you, I don't think that one guy sitting around on his back porch said, you know what? I'm going to pull this fraud. And then the guy in the porch next door came up with the same idea. Or, even word of mouth, does it spread that quickly that you end up with this level of fraud? Because you're taking money from the state. There's paperwork trails to dig through. You've got to get licensure. You've got to apply for things. You've got to fill in paperwork. This is a fairly extensive set of work. And, 500 different people didn't come up with this on their own.
All right.
So to me, I start thinking RICO. I start thinking conspiracy. I start thinking, let's get a big case going here, because all I have to show is, some level of linkage between all these people, and everybody's going away for a long time. I'm seizing all kinds of assets. And I'm lecturing across the FBI and law enforcement for a decade, on this phenomenal thing that I've done. But it's not a wild conjecture to say there's some sort of central orchestrating facility or group community. This is organized crime.
Big time.
It's simple. It's absolutely organized crime.
There's no difference than, if one of the 5 families was pulling this fraud level of fraud.
The Genovese wish they could pull a fraud like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely wish they could pull a fraud like this, because there's no guns involved. And when you do grab somebody, they're not going away for 50 to life because of a multi-million-dollar fraud. Now, if you get them on a RICO matter, well, that's a different animal. But yeah, I would definitely follow that money, because you steal $500, maybe you can hide that. You steal $500 million, that's a lot tougher to hide.
Your best guess, where's this going? Just guess. Wild guess. Throw a dart at the wall.
I would say there's probably some of it is going to the perpetrators, right? You got to pay your staff. Okay. I would say the lion's share of it is going up the chain to political cover. Now, you can't just give envelopes of cash anymore, but you get a PAC and you route money into their campaign funds, and they're allowed to take a percentage of that and put it in their own bank accounts. That's how you end up with, people in Congress making $150,000 a year that go from $100,000 in their bank account to $30 million in their bank account in 5 years or 10 years.
Just to be clear, you're not talking about Illa Omar.
I am not. Your words, not mine.
Yeah, I know. I just want to be clear here on Coffee with Rich. I don't know how she went from a net worth of $100,000 to $30 million. That's none of my business. I don't want to be a racist or a xenophobe. You heard it here first, folks. I'm not saying that's how she got her money at all.
In fairness, that is a common path for everybody in Congress. I mean, nobody goes into, I know, right? Shocking. Nobody goes into Congress and loses money.
No.
Right? Nobody comes out of a 6-year term in the Senate or a 2-year term in the House with less money than they went in with. By orders of magnitude. That's
the only one that Harry Truman.
Yeah, and that was a couple days ago, right?
Yeah, and he was like sleeping on somebody's couch when he left being president. I think that's one of the reasons why they started making presidents get money for life, because he was broke.
Yeah. They didn't have a retirement gig. It's like NFL players, right? They used to play, and sorry you got all torn up in your 20s, but there's no money for you now.
I want to jump back here to a couple things here. Tony says all the Somalis complained to Leo that he was harassing them. Yeah, so that's where I've kind of ended at. I'm going to pick it back up as soon as we get off. I just started watching it this morning. I wish I'd have watched it over the weekend. I would have had a better show put together for you. But I just want to kind of, we have access to Dr. Fuller here, who has worked a lot of these white collar crimes. And I want to kind of get his thoughts on where he sees this thing going, because I think you really have to bring outside agencies in, because I don't know where the fraud is. Where does it start and where does it stop? Jeff says the changing the state flag was just a start. Yeah, that was a weird one, man. I did several years ago. Mike and I did some training, a week-long package up there in Minnesota. And when we were done, they gave us the Minnesota state flag, and I still have it here as a thank you from the police up there. And now that flag has been retired for a flag that just looks like the Somali flag. So again, that's why I say, Dr. Fuller, you're going to have to, oh yeah, check it out. I wish I could show you, but yeah, Google that thing. It looks just like the Somali flag. So I would submit you got to have outside people come in, because I don't know where it ends and begins. Alan Kelly is on here from Triple Occupied Virginia. Doug is on here from a very windy and cold Columbus, Ohio. Bruce is on. Mark is on from Australia. Good morning, guys. I had a point about this, but I'll throw it to you, Dr. Fuller, as my brain needs time to process.
I think we should also keep in mind this will feed into those with a racist bent. It will feed into those of a xenophobic mindset, regardless of the truth at this point, because you don't have a reputable, known media outlet publishing this. Now, can we argue about the veracity of modern media? Certainly we can. But you don't have a honest third party saying this is what's going on, or, hey, we're investigating and we're looking into this, that, and the other thing. So people are going to make up their information, and they're going to get it from wherever they get it. And I promise you that some will spin this hard right. Some will spin it hard left. Oh, this is just, the horrible white man keeping the black Muslim down. But I promise you that people on the other extreme of that particular spectrum are going to take this and run with it as well. And it serves to further balkanize a community. Right? It's going to fracture the community even more. It's going to drive those wedges even deeper. And that's not good for either side. It is good for outside actors in other nations. It is good for those who thrive on chaos inside our own borders. And in chaos, there is opportunity, right? So you create additional racial strife there in Minnesota. That's going to benefit some people. So, of course, the question then becomes who's going to benefit from this?
Look, yeah, we've talked about this. Some of my family members back in the late 1800s, they were part of the Blue Bills and the White Coats, and it was just these groups that fought against each other because they said, if there's a vacuum, somebody's going to stand to fill it. And these men on both sides of the fence, it was the Blue Bills and the White Caps. You can read about it. It's not a Klan thing, but they looked kind of like the Klan, and they fought each other in the woods of East Tennessee after the Civil War over this slight or that slight. And it was families combining together. So I say all that to say there's nothing unusual about that. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these centers get firebombed. I mean, that to me seems like, because again, if once the people feel like, well, there's nobody doing anything about it, nobody's getting arrested, nobody's being held accountable, they're stealing my money, the police don't exist here, they're not, I've given you have the monopoly on force, dominus hominis. You commit force on my behalf, you do investigations on my behalf, and they're not. That's okay. Well, here comes the violence. Yeah, and it's going to be ugly and uncoordinated and chaotic, and innocent people are going to be hurt. My thoughts.
True. And Shirley is threatening a cash cow, a significant cash cow. So I would say he's at risk at this point. His days of walking in, just him and a cameraman, into these areas and doing these reports are probably coming to a rapid conclusion one way or the other.
Yeah.
Because now everybody knows what he looks like when they see him coming. He's got a problem, because there's a lot of money up for grabs here. And,
well, we didn't talk about the one place you didn't take the money, which is where I think the money's going. I mean, I know some of it's going back to kickback and PACs and all this other slimy crap that goes on. But I think it's going to foreign terrorist entities. That's the Rich Brown conspiracy theory of the morning.
I would be surprised if it's not going to a very similar place that the money from largely now defunct cash stream of hijacking tankers used to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, again, you look at Somalia and you look at some of these villages and you think, okay, if somebody hijacks a tanker and gets $5 million in ransom, $10 million in ransom, whatever it is, and it flows into a community and that guy pulls a Robin Hood, whoever pulled in that money, all of a sudden, hey, we got running water, right? We've got wells, we've got electricity, we've got big generators, we've got paved, dare I say, paved roads. Maybe we build a school, maybe we build a hospital. None of that is happening. So where's that money going?
It's the same thing with Hamas, right? I mean, everybody dumped money into Hamas. What did they do with it? They built tunnels underground and bought missiles and rockets and stuff to kill people. And, you know, is it going to Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, AQ on the peninsula? It's going to some of those organizations and many others that you and I aren't familiar with. But you look at the neighborhoods; these places are dumps that these alleged child daycare facilities are running in. They're not putting it into the community, so it's going somewhere. And I think you're right. Part of it is probably fleecing politicians and getting them to turn an eye. And because think about it, if I bring a case, you know, if I'm a low level person, like, you know what, I've been there to inspect this place. I've tried to shut them down. Just so you know, there's never been a child in there. And here's my reports. And they tell you, hey, go pound sand. Here, I'm going to give that to Bill. You go look at something else. That's all it takes is a few of those. And it's like, okay.
It really is, especially if I'm going out there and I feel intimidated. I feel like I'm being put at risk because these aren't cops, right? These are licensing guys, you know, right? They drive an Aries K and they drink their lattes and they don't want to go out there and get hassled. And they certainly, you know, three big guys come up and loom over them. They're like, you know what? Not me, not today. Mm-hmm. So you kind of see how it would be pretty simple to do. You know, they're not sending a half a dozen pipe hitters out there looking for a problem. And it's just not going to end up well. And why do you say this? Well, because, and why is this relevant to this audience? Well, it's relevant to this audience because one, as you point out, it's your money. Two, some of your money is almost certainly going to fund terrorism. And that terrorism can come home to roost and visit you in your happy home. Three, it's going to feed into street level crime. As you say, there's going to be a response. There's going to be a disorganized, and at some point it's going to turn violent response. And that could end up involving you inadvertently, right? If you happen to live in Minnesota or wherever else some of these communities are popping up. You know, it's going to further fracture our society. It's going to further add stressors in distant locales. And none of that works out well for anyone. It just doesn't. You know, then somebody sees somebody from Haiti on a bus in, you know, Arizona, decides that's a Somali and starts having an issue with them. And that escalates. And you see where I'm going. All of a sudden now, this Somali thing in Minnesota that has zero to do with you ends up being a knife fight on a bus while you're trying to go to the market. It seems like a rather tenuous string, but that's how these things can kind of connect to themselves. And that's why you need to be aware of what's kind of going on in your society and where these stress points are and where these potential fractures are.
No, I 100% agree with you, man. 100%. Gal is on, says, Happy New Year, guys. Will Rhodes is on. Good morning, Rich and Dr. Fuller. Coin number 2269. Johnny King says, good morning from Kentucky, gentlemen. Good morning to the 12 folks watching us live. We're kind of discussing loosely as, you know, about this kind of thing. I remember what I was going to tell you, Dr. Fuller. So I got sent to Puerto Rico to do an investigation, and we started out in Ponce and seized all the records there. I had a couple of interpreters with me that got on the phone and interviewed all the applicants that were waiting to go to recruit training. And so, and from that investigation, it kind of led us to believe that the fraud was coming out of the military entrance processing station in San Juan. So we went to San Juan with my, I had a colonel with me flying top cover. Plus, he was also getting a little vacation to Puerto Rico by assisting Rich, the investigator. And then we had our interpreter with us. And when we said, hey, look, it all appears to be this one testing official, is a female. And everything kind of, all the tentacles kind of converge back on this one woman. All the fraud, there was, various testing officials all over the island, but there was only one involved in every single one. And as soon as we brought up her name, it's like, hey, you may want to look into this. They're like, you need to leave this building immediately. And the person that said that was 03, and my colonel was there. It's like, excuse me, Captain? It's like, I want you people out of my building. Security? I kid you not, man. So anyway, it's a longer story, but my point is, we were the outside entity, and we thought we were dealing with honest brokers, like, hey, and he should have been like, what, Becky? All right, yeah, I'll get an investigation started immediately. Instead, it was like, get the hell off my island immediately. So you're gonna have to bring in some feds and from outside the area. I don't know where it ends.
Well, I agree. I think you need to have that because clearly the state investigators have some level of problem. Clearly, because this should have been a big state case already, and maybe it is. Right? Maybe the state's working it. But the other issue that you run into, as you well know, is look, when the feds come in, there's nobody saying, "Ooh, no, we can't afford that. No, we need what? You need $500 for photocopies? Oh, yeah, can we do that for $200?" I've been party to those conversations.
Right.
State police have had to say, yeah, you know what? I can only, you're going to charge me with the bank records. Oh, I need 5 years of bank records. Okay, well, it's going to be, $500 a year. Ooh, yeah, I'm only authorized to spend $400.
Yeah.
That was never a problem in the FBI. No, I never once said, oh, darn it, can't afford that. Now, the flip side was I was charged with being a fiscally responsible husband of the public coffers. And there were significant repercussions if you weren't. But it's an asset. Money is an asset, and it's a problem solver in these kind of situations. And the feds bring that when they come in and do these investigations.
Yeah.
Same thing with Puerto Rico.
Same thing with the DOD, DOJ, DOD. It's all no different, man. I had an unlimited budget, and I also had an 06 standing on my neck to get this damn thing turned around as quick as possible. And that's another thing that's really kind of pissed me off here with a lot of these investigations. They drag on for years and years and years, man. I had like 6 weeks at the tops, and like, you have an unlimited budget. I don't understand. You don't need to sleep. You just need to close this damn thing out quick. And oh, by the way, the colonel or whoever the convening authority might have been for that court martial, he is really emotionally involved in this, and he writes your fitness report, and you better get it done ASAP, so. Now, the evidence is going to be what it's going to be, but I just don't understand why things take years and years and years. I mean, I just don't freaking get it, man. Other than people are dragging their feet waiting for a damn statute of limitations to run out, i.e. Hunter Biden.
Maybe. And look, if your boss is saying, I want you to work violent crime in the hood, I want you to go get the Latin Kings, or I want you to go get this violent Somali gang that's taking over this six square block area, that's going to take priority. And you've only got so many assets. And traditionally, that's why you get away with fraud for so long.
It doesn't sound like you're speaking hypothetically, because that's, and I'm serious. I mean, because isn't that what Director Patel has done? He's been like, no, take your eyes off that. We're going to focus on low-level, violent, felonious crime. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Right.
Am I right on that?
Yeah, you are. I mean, it's white collar cases are nonviolent, so they don't tend to snatch the headlines. The penalties tend to be lower when you are caught and convicted, and they're complicated. They're lengthy and they're complex because you've got to get the bank records, and you have to sit down and I've done this. When somebody rolls in with 10 bankers boxes full of bank statements, and now you've got to go through them page by page. There's no way around it. That takes time. And you can have 50 guys do it, but then you still have to collate that information. And spotting the patterns and spotting the linkages is really tough when you've got multiple people with their fingers on the same pie. So this is so funny that we're having this conversation, and 16 folks are going to get to watch this play out. I love this. I'm going to tell you how
low level, stupid Rich Brown does it. Okay. I do as much as I can do on the computer. And then this was like a 36-month thing, right? So I literally took over like a gymnasium on Paris Island, put armed guards on it, chain of custody, had them sign their shit, and then I lined out the tables and literally had 3 sets for each month. It was like, cause it was where he was ordered to be, what his phone records were saying, and what his government credit card was doing, and any other little piece of evidence. And then I had a couple of people help me, and we went in with highlighters and just row by row, because I was just going mad with spreadsheets and trying to do it digitally. And I'm like, hey, I'm taking it back to old school. Print this freaking crap out and let's do it that way. And we had a whole gym table set up to do this. So tell me how silly that is compared to some of the.
That's not silly at all. That's how a lot of this stuff gets done. Because if you're looking for 3 sheets of paper in those 10 bankers boxes, and you have to be able to link them together and show the money flow from A to B to C, that's complicated, and it takes time, it takes training, and it takes diligence. I mean, what you just described, that whole investigation could be set back weeks by a stiff breeze, right? I mean,
right.
Somebody runs through there and knocks a table over. That's a significant impact on the investigation, right? You want to beat him to death. There's going to be a murder-suicide. So that translates to being less attractive. Okay. And you know the deal. You've met enough cops. Everybody wants to race out. Well, most people want to race out, grab the violent bad guy, get in the tussle, wrestle him into cuffs, drag him off. I got the murderer. I got the violent armed robber. Saying I got the fraudster doesn't have the same level of impact.
So there's a certain moral weight attached to, like you said, beating the shit out of somebody who hurt a child or something like that. Man, I tell you what, that's pleasurable. Right. But like I said, well, this guy over here with the glasses and the pocket protector, he used a computer to defraud.
Right. But the average armed robber gets $100.
Right.
A fraudster can get millions.
In this case, billions, perhaps
billions of state money. And where are the state regulators, right? That money is going out the door, and somebody is authorizing that to happen. Somebody is looking at that, and multiple somebodies, right? Where are they? Just asleep at the switch? I mean, at best they're asleep at the switch. At worst, they're being bribed.
Right.
What other choices are there?
I don't know, Dr. Fuller, because
I want to give them all these millions of our taxpayers' dollars undeservedly.
Yeah. Maybe. You got a great point there. And in some cases they did their job and shut some of these places down. But then what would happen is, as I saw in the 20 so minutes I watched of the 42-minute thing put out there by Nick, they would just open under a new name the next day, same address. And then the process starts again. Yep. That doesn't trip a switch and go, hold time out.
Yeah. And look, you could solve a lot of this by mandating inspections. You got to roll out there and inspect. Surprise inspections.
Yes.
Have to be done. And you have to see children, and you have to see, records. You have to see bank records. You have to see information. If you go and insure your car, you have to show the bank that you own the car.
Right.
Right. And if you make a claim that, hey, my car got destroyed in a fire, well, you have to show some level of evidence back to the insurer before he's going to give you a nickel. And if he thinks it's suspicious, he's going to send an investigator out to check it out and make sure you're not stealing his money. And that's for your car.
Thank you. I run a construction company, as you and most people on here know. And every year I get 2 audits from our insurance. One is for our workers' comp and one is for our general liability. And they crawl up my rear end. And they come here, open kimono, they look at everything, and they'll pull all the data I give them, and then they spot check, let's say 10%. So I'm saying that one of the providers was XYZ Inc. He's a sub that we use. And I provide them the document that shows he's got insurance. So they're going to make a phone call on 10%. Hey, is this legitimate? They're going to back check it. And we're talking about, a business that makes, I don't know, a little less than 2 million a year. And these are frauds to the tune of tens of millions, and nobody's minding the store.
And like any inspection, right? If they come in and everything's okay, then they move on it. But if they start to find something, they start to dig deeper.
I would hope so.
Every inspection I was ever in the military and the FBI, they reinforce failure. If they find failure, to reinforce their investigation on that failure. I would expect that would be the way to approach it here as well. And it seems to me that the simple advent of putting up a couple of poll cameras and watching the front entrances of these places for a week proves your point. You watch and see, are children being dropped off in the numbers that they claim? And then you go back and you look at their records and say, well, for this week, you claimed you had 75 children here. Oddly, we have video evidence of that entire week of every entrance to your facility and no children entered. So you have lied to the state here. Now there should be civil and criminal penalties for that, one of which should be the suspension of your license, and seizure of assets. I mean, go get them, right? Yeah. Ban these people for life from being licensed, make it inconvenient for them, make it more difficult, and throw people in jail.
Yeah.
But
I don't know what's hard about that.
Or you just keep throwing money at them because you want to fund them for whatever. You feel some level of responsibility for them, guilt for them. I don't understand the motivation. I really don't. I would honestly like to hear whatever their motivation is. I'd love to hear it.
I'd like to think if these were Polish or Hungarian immigrants, they'd have no problem tearing this thing to pieces, because there's nobody to scream racism. There's nobody to scream xenophobia. These are people from Western Europe, Christian nation, and there's no pushback, no kickback. And I'm not stupid enough to think that Tammany Hall didn't do a lot of the same kind of crap with the Irish coming over. I know they did, and we had to root out the corruption, and it took a long time. Michael Chantilly asked a question, Dr. Fuller. I'm gonna throw it to you. It says, is the leading indicator of how deep the corruption goes to all levels of government, including the regulators? What is the leading indicator, I guess, is what he's asking here.
I don't know. And I struggle with the idea that it is a coordinated, corruption at the highest levels of government. That's hard for me to get my head around. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. But I've seen far too many government officials, and I struggle with the idea that they could be that coordinated and that quiet. Nobody would talk. And we've got some sort of large, conspiracy going on. Now, could you have a bunch of people that think the same way, that want to go in the same direction, that aren't necessarily coordinating with each other, and they just happen to be, well, I want to do this, I want to do that? Maybe. That's easier for me to get my head around. Actual cash payments, that's real tough to hide, unless it's just straight cash. And people deal very little in cash anymore. So
I think they're weaponizing our empathy against us.
Absolutely.
They are. We're America is and has always been a welcoming country. We want people to come in. We want them to work hard and assimilate, and we assume the best in others. And I think that's a beautiful thing to do. But we should come down with a righteous fury on those that weaponize our empathy against us. And I think that's what this community is doing. Jeff says, I'm putting in a septic system right now, and I have watched the inspector drive by 3 times watching the contractor. Yeah, I mean, when we have when we're working on a high rise and we've got scaffolding, obviously I care about the workers just because I know them and I know their family and I want them to be safe. So we do inspections every morning. After lunch break, we inspect the harnesses and we record all this stuff. But OSHA's driving by, and they're looking and they know we have a great reputation. So, okay, I won't say the name of the company, but those guys are good to go. They're top notch. They take this stuff serious. But they're out there watching, man, and I don't understand how this level of fraud occurs in a vacuum. Like you said, there's regulators, there's inspectors, and nobody blew the whistle. And if there are people that blew the whistle, they need whistleblower protection. I want to hear it from them.
If somebody did blow the whistle, then somebody else stymied that call.
Mhm.
right? Somebody else said, "Yeah, me and no further."
Right.
Now, do I think that that person is part of a cabal of people that are working to, further Somali efforts? Maybe, maybe. I think it's worthy of an investigation, though. It's absolutely. Let's find out, what's your motivation. I mean, are you just part of this sort of approach that the left has taken over the last decade of, let's just flood the country with low-income foreigners who traditionally vote our way? Is that what we're trying to do? Or are we trying to help gerrymander some of these districts and get ourselves more control at the highest levels of government and local communities be damned? Is that what we're trying to do? And so we're all on board with that idea? Or are we just, oh, these poor Somalis, we need to get them out of Somalia and put hundreds of thousands of them into Minnesota, which is an odd choice to me. It's very cold in Minnesota, a lot of water, a lot of trees, not Somali-esque in the slightest.
No.
So I don't get that, but I guess I'm not supposed to get it.
No, Dr. Fuller, you are not, sir. Jeff points out, and it's comical and sad, but it's also infuriating. It says the sign out front of one of these facilities says Child Leering Center.
Yeah, I saw that.
Not Learning Center, leering. They're teaching children how to leer at people, I guess. And we got a lot of folks on this morning. Razmik is on. Good morning, Razmik. John is on out there in Yukon, Oklahoma. Ted wishes everyone a great end to 2025. Let's see. Tony says, but hey, the UN Somali security president is advocating and isolating the U.S. Oh, boy. Ted says, my guess is yes, urban belly buttons for political power. Don is on from Northwest Montana. Don, you're coming in late this morning, sir, but we're so glad to have you with us, talking about the unprecedented levels of fraud that appear to have been uncovered in Minnesota, and what are some of the things that can and should be done regarding it, and how this level of fraud really is allowed to perpetrate for this long. And what's interesting about it is, if there had been a lot of people driving Porsches and Mercedes and these nice buildings, that might raise some red flags. But if you're pumping that money back to support something that you really believe in, i.e. terrorism. And again, I'm just one dude. I have no idea, no inside baseball, neither does Dr. Fuller. Let's be clear. We have nothing other than watching this damn thing for 20 minutes and you putting some, correlation. Of course, correlation is not causation. But
I'm sure some of that money is going to bring more Somalis over. I'm sure there's some law firms that have been hired, immigration law firms, to help get, my cousin, my aunt.
They get $2,500 for that. Did you see that?
No, I did not.
There's an NGO that gets paid $2,500 for every Somali they bring over.
Who pays them?
Oh, well, again, it's that USAID stuff, and that was one of the things with Doge. Doge didn't get to go far enough. I think they found something, and we're talking. Okay, that's kind of enough. Great job. Let's give him a key to the West Wing, and thank you so much, Alon. You can go back in the closet and do whatever you're doing over there at SpaceX. Because there was quickly, we found all the fraud. Thanks, guys. No, we didn't. We're just getting started.
Yeah, I struggle with the Doge thing. It sounded interesting when it came out. I think it went about it in a very hack and slash fashion.
I was going to say hatchet, yeah.
It was not in any way. It was, hey, there's a mass of humanity attacking us coming up Bunker Hill. Just throw bullets at it. It was not a precision attack that could have actually had an impact. And at the end of the day, Rich, show me an arrest.
Thank you.
Show me an indictment.
I don't know.
Show me a federal investigation that they're even talking about. When Doge came along and said, "Oh, we found millions of this and millions of that," and all these got everybody all whipped up, right? Everybody on the right was like, "See, that Biden crew was rotten because Doge found this and this and this, and he's rooting it out and he's doing this." And you know what? 90 days later, he's off. He's getting $1 trillion contract with Tesla, right? So he's making money at record levels, which is great for him. Good for him. He's a smart guy. He's doing great things. Awesome. Created a lot of jobs.
This is my new favorite meme. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah, I saw that one.
For the love of God, arrest someone. Yeah. I had so much hope for the Patel Bondi, but it's just like they're playing 3-card Monty with the American people, and it's disgusting.
And look, we've talked about it on the show before. you didn't hire the best people for those jobs. Mr. Trump, you didn't. I'm sorry. And I don't mean to insult anybody by saying that, but the key ID feature for those two and for Mr. Bongino was not investigative experience, was not prosecutorial experience, was not experience at running large, complex federal bureaucracies. Their key ID feature on all three of those people and others was unabashed loyalty to the president. Full stop. And okay, if you're the president, if that's who you want to hire, that's fine. You can do that. That's legal. But don't then expect great and glorious things to happen. Just don't, because it's not going to. And what does happen is what we've seen happen.
Yeah.
And one of those things is DOJ claims to have found record-setting amounts of federal government fraud, and the leading law enforcement agency that should have jurisdiction over that has done nothing about it.
And I tell you that my cynical side says everybody's getting some of that money. It's like it's because, again, like Hunter Biden had 81 LLCs or 78. It was some obscene amount. Why do you need that? What are you talking about? Because it makes it really hard to follow the money when it's going through this and that. And it's actually a subsidiary of there's a subsidiary of the company that's part of LLC number 31. We probably should have told you more about that. It's Michael Gentile says the lesson I took from the initial DOJ revelations was that Congress set up and funded agencies to funnel money back to themselves and their interests. That's exactly my point precisely. Michael Gentile says uncontrolled immigration serves multiple agendas: enhance voter base, hollow out the middle class, and increase the supply of cheap labor. Every big interest wins and individuals lose. The thing here, though, is it's not like Somalis are coming in and working hard and laying block and turning out new cars for the American market. They just seem to be engaging in the same levels of fraud they do in other parts of the Western world where they come.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder what's going to happen in 1 or 2 generations.
Yeah.
It just, I've seen it in Vermont. Vermont has a significant Somali immigrant population, and they were showing up, 20 years ago when I was there. They were bringing in, refugees from Somalia, Serbia, a couple other places. And what I saw in the case of the Somalis in Vermont at that time was that they created their own community, their own, Somali ghetto, and not like it was a ghetto, terrible living circumstances or whatever. Just they all kind of lived together. And then they created their own insular community. And it was, if the police went over there for whatever, it was, as you see in a lot of these racial or ethnic enclaves throughout history, is, the police get stonewalled. And they couldn't find out who beat this person, who raped this person, who murdered this person. And the second generation kids, the kids that either were born in the U.S. or were raised from a very young age in the U.S., didn't tend to rise to the occasion. They didn't seem to take advantage of all these things that they had laid out for them, the education. They continued to act like young American criminals. And they were growing up because they were growing up in that environment where the values brought with the parents from the old country were inculcated in them. But now they're also in the land of the big PX. And it was just not working out well at all. They were certainly not integrating into the community. They weren't adopting the better American values. They weren't, our better angels weren't appealing to them. We were seeing a lot of very, very gangbanger type activity. And I'm concerned that we're not going to see in 2 or 3 or 4 generations these groups diffusing out through the United States, becoming Americans, adopting American values and culture, and moving forward that way. I worry that we're going to see the worst of their community better than the best of their community.
Yeah, Tony says, no disrespect to Dr. Fuller, but the American people haven't had confidence for good reason in federal agencies for many, many, many years. Blind loyalty to the administration isn't new. Don says the swamp is far deeper and wider than they want us to know about. When they started to get into deeper water, they got close to stepping on someone's toes and they got called back to the shore. Gigi is on this morning. He says he definitely did not put the best people in, and TC knows what I'm talking about. I think that 16 folks watching us live. I'm going to share screen here for just a second because I know that we're bumping up on our time, and I'm going to show you a little beautiful thing here. Oh, the magic of live TV, Dr. Fuller. Let's see here.
Let's do it live.
Let's do it live. All right, this is going to be beautiful. You'll enjoy this.
Boston Mayor.
About any achievement that the city of Boston has had
Not a
in
single
safety, jobs, and economic development, in education, without talking about the Somali community that has lifted our city up. We are proud and we are grateful for our Somali community and for our Somali American neighbors. Boston and the country are clear that hate has no place in our society. We will use every attack to actually strengthen and expand the services available, to empower and work alongside our community members who are already doing so much good in the world and setting an example for the rest of the country.
I think she should be disbarred. I think she should be disbarred, and I'm not joking. Because this is an absolute falsehood. This is misinformation, disinformation. This is a lie. And the Massachusetts bar, which Michelle Wu, who is the mayor of Boston, is a member of, and she should lose her law license at a minimum and be investigated for lying to everyone's face. What are you talking about? Somalis have not been in America in any sort of numbers beyond a couple of hundred until the 1990s. Boston's been around since the 1600s. And she's saying, looking at me with a straight face, saying, you cannot have any discussions about the greatness of this city without talking about the Somali community. I dare you to do it. And I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? And this is a woman, not only as a JD from Harvard, perfect ACT, perfect SAT. This is one of the brightest women in our country. And, I don't see her blinking or giving, she's not doing Morse code. I'm being held hostage. I'm under duress saying this. She either really believes it and she's an absolute buffoon, or she's been co-opted. She's a virtue signaling, maybe all the above, Dr. Fuller. But when I saw that, I'm like, are you kidding me? Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry. The Somalis threw the tea in the Boston Harbor. I forgot about that one. I need a fact checker to check me on that one.
Who was she talking to in that? Because I automatically kind of assume she's a politician talking to Somalis, trying to whip up the Somali vote. And how many Somalis are in Boston? That's
I have no idea. She said, we're going to make sure they get all the services they need and all that. Well, that just means more fraud.
Here's a thought. If they have contributed this much and they've done this much and they're this integrated into the society, what additional services do they need? I've done all those things, and I
Great
don't
point.
in the way of additional services. I don't get that at all. There's kind of a logical disconnect for me in there. And this is what worries me. Right, because that's going to play very well to the people that she wants it to play well to. It is going to play very poorly to the others.
What about the Boston Irish? My God, man!
Oh yeah, have we forgotten?
Are you kidding me?
But
let's see here. Michael Gitelli says Boston has officially identified itself as the dumbest electorate in the U.S. Don says someone in a position of authority recently said the Somalis were major contributors to the construction industry in Tennessee. Absolutely not. I haven't seen it. I happen to know a little bit about that. Gal says, what are the Somalis doing in Boston? That's a great question. I would imagine they're committing some level of fraud.
And maybe that's where some of this money is going, is political contributions across the board, right? That's because, again, cause some chaos, cause some disconnect. Because now people in Boston are arguing with her over the contribution of Somalis. What are they not arguing about?
Here's my second favorite meme, and I hate to do this to you guys, but you can see that right there. It says Somalia first, proud to be a Somalian, waving his flag, and then ICE shows up. Okay, buddy, back to Somalia you go. Oh my God, no, this is unfair. Don't send me to Somalia. Oh no, my life is ruined. I don't get it.
Well, and we get that reaction from a lot of folks. And it's an interesting point, right? A lot of people out there screaming about how bad America is, how racist America is, right? What was it? It was a Whoopi Goldberg a couple of years ago said that, being a woman in America is worse than being a woman and living under ISIS control or something crazy like that. You can leave, right? Not only can you leave, it's not like the government's holding you here, but you have the money to leave. But so many people scream and rant about how horrible this country is, but I don't see them leaving. I just don't. I mean, you remember all all the wealthy folks in Hollywood scream about, if Trump gets elected, I'm leaving the country. And of course, most folks in my social unit kind of say, okay,
Bye.
Bye. You know,
Bye, Felicia.
you do what you got to do, right? Yet none of them did. None of them left. Well,
Oh, wait a minute.
Dawn left, right? Now she's getting extradited.
Yeah.
Honestly, do I care where Robert De Niro lives? No, I just don't. And you can leave. Yeah, matter of fact, right now, I think ICE is paying people who are here illegally to go home. Right? We'll pay for your flight and give you a little pocket change. Get out. And they still won't leave. This horrible, racist, Islamophobic, white paternalistic society. I scratch my head.
And, you know, I agree with you. Like, so, you know, this idea that we're a nation of immigrants is another absolute lie. We had millions and millions of people in the 13 colonies. And at the time, they were colonists of another British place. It just happens to be across the pond. So they weren't immigrants in any sense of the word. And that's of course, my stock. And I would also say, you know, there's a saying in combatives and in jiu-jitsu, the mats don't lie, you know, the mats don't lie. Well, the ground doesn't lie either. And you have to come in and put in the work back then. You know, you grew what you and your family ate. And if you chose not to work, you just freaking starved to death. Nobody gave a crap about you and your family dying in some cabin somewhere because you were too drunk and lazy to put in a crop. But now you can come over here and perpetrate incredible levels of fraud and make all the money you want on the sympathies and empathies of this white electorate. And at some point, people are going to have to wake up.
Well, and it does have a dramatic impact on our society. I've seen some statistics out of New York where they've booted so many people out of there that rents are dropping, that all of a sudden the city has more money than it had. I don't have the exact figures in front of me, unfortunately, because they're not subsidizing the massive level of foreign influx that they've been having. Now, of course, that hasn't stopped them from raising the rates on the buses that were supposed to be free starting in January, but we'll see how that sugars out.
I know this is not part of our discussion this morning, but Mondani, did you see who he's appointed to be the new fire chief?
Yeah, I should have put in for it. I don't have any fire chief.
A lesbian woman who's never been a firefighter, not a single day, but thank God we got a lesbian woman now as an NY fire. Thank God.
Let's just
our work here's done.
Yeah, let's hope the airlines don't start doing stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've never flown a plane before, but you're the right demographic for us. We're going to put you on our social media platforms and tell everybody how virtuous we are. You go fly the plane.
That's what one of the things Pete Hegseth in his speech to the generals, which was fantastic, by the way, I might need to go watch that again, was I'm ending the first of culture. And I think a lot of that breezed by a lot of people, but really in a lot of places that culture of the first of, it's the first openly gay, lesbian, tree hugging, window looking, mouth breathing, whatever we can get up there. Oh my God, we're going to name a destroyer after that person. We're going to do all this crap. And it's like, no, I'm ending it. Who cares? It's merit that should get you there. And a woman who's never put out a fire, climbed a ladder, you can't tell me there's a meritocracy at place here. That's not a meritocracy.
And what's it tell everybody at the lower ranks? It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how many fires you fought, how many lives you've saved, how many schools you've been to, how many firehouses you've led. It does not matter if you're not the right fit for our social program.
Yeah.
That's a significant disincentive.
Yeah.
That is a performance disincentive. That is a disincentive to even hire into the organization in the first place. That has long-term ripple effect. And I'm sorry, but when my house is on fire, I do not care what color the fireman is. I don't care what their religion is. I don't care who they sleep with. I don't care. I want them to bash down the door and come and get me out of the fire. That's all I care about. You saw this in the military, and we talked about it on the show once before. When you're being shot up and somebody flies in with some air cover for you and is going to start laying down some hate out of an A-10 or AH-64, it never once occurred to me or anyone I know, oh, wait a minute, is that guy the right color? Is that a dude flying that? Is that a dude that sleeps with other dudes? Because I don't want any air cover from that kind of person.
Is that an overweight, fat, handicapped lesbian woman that's flying that? If not, something's wrong here.
If the aircraft is flying straight and level and doing the gun run on the right people, you're my boy. If you're barely able to get off the deck and you crash into a tree on the way out, not so much. So you were paying attention to things that at a practical level nobody cares about and should not be under consideration. Simply shouldn't.
Right.
So,
and I know we're over time, but if you would permit me, I've got two quick ones on right here. Don Bothwell says these people, talking about the settlers from heritage stock Americans, if you will. I know that phrase has gotten a little bit of negative patina on it, but I'm still going to use it because I think it's appropriate. These people were settlers. They had to build a nation and infrastructure just to survive. They weren't immigrants that were coming into an established system to live their lives, established system that they, of course, could fleece. Guile says, how are these Somalis easily moving into the U.S. while people like me trying to get in legally? I mean, even Middle Eastern people just jump in while my race, the Filipinos, have a hard time getting visas. That's a great point, buddy. I'll take, 10 of you over 1 million of those freaking people any day, buddy.
Well, to Bothwell's point, if these people were the type of folks that were going to create an infrastructure, create a functioning society, build businesses, they'd stay home and do that. Right? So they're not interested in that. They're interested in coming here where we'll give them a cell phone and we'll give them the right to vote and we'll put them in, we'll make them cops and we'll give them all the rights and privileges. We'll give them better health insurance and health care that they've ever seen in their lives.
They've never had it.
Somebody else is going to pay for it. And I really like Giles' point because that drives me bonkers and has for years. You basically allow people to commit a crime and then you give them amnesty every 10 or 15, 20 years, whenever you get a person on the left, it seems, that's going to go ahead and just give them amnesty and make 8 million new Democratic voters. What does that tell the guy that does it right? I have a next door neighbor who's ethnic, a subcontinent Indian guy. He and his wife are green card holders. Their children were born here in the United States. They're both engineers. He and his wife, she's a electrical and he's I think IT guy, very intelligent, very well educated. His parents are MDs. His sister's an MD in Scotland. Okay. Hardworking, diligent people. And oh, by the way, both their kids born in the United States, anchor babies, if you want to go that route. What are they doing? They're trying to become citizens. Right. They're going through all the paperwork and all the rigmarole that's involved in becoming citizens because that's the right way to do it. It's going to take them almost a decade to do that.
Yeah. And a lot of money, by the way.
And a lot of money and a lot of time and they are precisely the kind of people that we would like to see immigrate into this country.
Amen.
Absolutely the kind of people. And they're fantastic human beings. They're hardworking. And meanwhile, a couple other doors down, I've got the exact opposite. And these folks are, what do you call it, legacy citizens.
Heritage Americans.
Heritage Americans that were the kind of people that you love to boot out of the country. What does that tell a guy like Guile? He's the kind of guy that he and his fiance would love to have him immigrate over here, but it is such a lengthy, difficult process that it's a disincentive for him to try. He's like, oh, geez, do I want to spend the next decade of my life, pushing this rock up a hill? Meanwhile, somebody sneaks over the border and they get all the rights. They put them up in a 4-star hotel. They throw them food. They throw them, a couple grand a month in subsidies. They give them a cell phone. Hey, you're our guy. What's that tell him?
Mark Hamilton from Ontario, Canada says, I'm interested in moving to the U.S. with credentials, and I have been turned down. And what's interesting about this is I think that we need to look at these people coming in that don't appreciate our culture with a jaundiced eye, man. And the answer should be no until proven otherwise. You don't speak the language. You don't respect the culture. You don't assimilate. Matter of fact, I think that we need to be like, no. And it has nothing to do with race or ethnicity, zero, as you pointed out, with your folks in your neighborhood that are adding a lot of value to this country. And they're assimilating, obviously, because they're taking these really high-end jobs. And And then we have the other ones that are not and will never assimilate. Then no, I'm not interested in you being a part of our experiment here. Have a nice day. Go away.
Well, they seem to be pretty good at assimilating into the welfare culture.
Yeah. Which we don't need. We have Americans, heritage Americans, people that are here legally and lawfully that need those services, and they're being robbed and stolen from. And I hope the full weight measure of our Justice Department comes down on their heads.
Yes, well, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas.
And with that, Dr. Fuller?
Hey, if this hasn't convinced you in one additional facet of life that the fight is coming and you should be ready, go back and re-listen to the show.